Viewers, we are here in China, in Tianjin to be precise, which is going to be playing host to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in just 24 hours. Tianjin is a port city which brings in actually a lot of trade from SCO countries, the 10 member states of the SCO, the 2 observers and the 6 associate members. All of that trade passes through Tianjin, so it's not for any miscellaneous reason why the SCO is being held here, but for a very pertinent one, because what is in the news? Trade tyranny, Trumpian trade tyranny. And both the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and President Xi have already made it quite clear that trade will be on the agenda, deepening an equation which had soured for a few years, would revolve around trying to find middle ground on trade issues, geonomics, not so much perhaps the geopolitics, which remains a little tetchy and piquant between the two countries, but 24 hours, the Prime Minister lands. The very next morning, which is Sunday morning, at around midday here, a conversation is going to begin. It's already raining, but on that particular day, it's going to be sunny, and let's just hope that bright sunshine illuminates the relationship. Let me tell you that the Prime Minister, who is expected, has already spoken in Japan, as we know, in the company of the Japanese Prime Minister, saying that he's really looking forward to deepening the equations with China on the trade front. In fact, let me tell you that a few days back, the Prime Minister commented in his meeting with Wang Yi, the Chinese External Affairs Minister, that he expected stable, predictable and constructive ties with Beijing. And while I won't say that that is beyond the realm of possibility, we will see obviously a degree of awkwardness when the two leaders meet. It's not been the best of times for the two countries, so to come to this stability, they need trust, and that has been in deficit ever since Galwan. And to be honest, since Galwan, there has also been a recalcitrance from India to normalize relations. There has also been, of course, Beijing's own attempt at disrupting relations by lock, stock and barrel, getting into bed, so to speak, with Pakistan in a collusive relationship which led really to India feeling the heat during Operation Sindoor. Remember, the Chinese were giving real-time intelligence to Pakistan, which irked India because it went beyond simply military cooperation and, of course, political confidence building of Pakistan. This crossed a limit which led to what is known as a uniform or unified military front, and India found itself in some ways battling two enemies at one go. The Chinese will have to walk more than half the distance, let me be very honest, if this is going to work, because the trust deficit really has opened up, because Beijing has viewed our relationship through what is known as a zero-sum lens. Therefore, viewers, the Prime Minister will be expecting certain assurances from Xi Jinping. Whether those will be forthright and whether they will actually be laid out in formal terms on the table as part of an agreement remains to be seen. But the emphasis will be, as I said, to build confidence. And the one way that the two capitals, Beijing and Delhi, think that they can do that is by deepening the trade relationship. So expect some amount of concessions on both sides on the trade front. But we'll have to, of course, wait and see. This is going to be a delicate dance. It is not a reset, as many people have been suggesting it is. It is not a reset. It will mean that we will begin rather to formalize an association that had gone a bit cold. So that's really from me here in Tianjin as we look forward to those important talks.
Why did China pick Tianjin to host this year's SCO Summit? For many watching from the outside, Beijing or Shanghai would seem the natural choice. Beijing is the capital of China, while Shanghai is where the SCO was born. As the name says it, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So Tianjin was a surprise pick. But why? The answer lies here in the streets of Tianjin. These are not ordinary homes, they are practically heritage sites. This place is often described as an open museum. Tianjin is the fourth largest city of China and it carries an unusual nickname. It is called the Outdoor Museum, and that's because of what surrounds me. This city is an extraordinary collection of preserved historical architecture, buildings from different countries and different eras all standing together. And where we are right now is called the Five Great Avenues. It is home to more than 2,000 historical buildings. More than 400 of them have been designated as protected historical sites with plaques like this one. It says Great General Protection, Historical and Stylistic Architecture of Tianjin. You'll see this all over the place here. And this is what makes the city so unique. It is a modern city, but it also feels like a living exhibition where each street and each district is part of the display. The homes in Tianjin's Five Great Avenues are direct architectural remnants of China's colonial period. They reflect the foreign concession system. This system emerged after China's military defeats in the 19th century. This is what used to be a part of British concession, one of many concessions in Tianjin. According to one claim, there were a total of 9. Each was a designated area not governed by China. It was controlled by a foreign country, like a mini, its own laws, its own police, its own courts, its own administration, and completely outside Chinese control. Each concession brought with it a piece of another country, all planted onto Chinese soil. That is no longer the case today. These buildings are now firmly in Chinese hands. The streets are lined with Chinese shops and cafes. Modern-day Chinese coffee and food chains now operate from colonial buildings. They represent today's China, the world's second-largest economy, and a force to reckon with. That is the message that Xi Jinping wants to send as the host of the SCO Summit. Tianjin sits on Bohai Bay. It is the maritime gateway to Beijing, a strategic city, also central to the Belt and Road Initiative. Tianjin serves as connection between land corridors and sea trade routes. It plays a growing role in regional trade logistics. Its port is connected with more than 180 countries and regions. Freight trains now link Tianjin directly with Central Asia and Europe. One recent route from Tianjin to Uzbekistan shortened delivery distance by 800 kilometers. This city is strategically important for China's SCO outreach. The SCO represents around 40% of the world's population and 25% of global GDP. So the subtext is clear. It is not just about hosting a summit, it is about sending a message, a shift in balance. From the West's G7 summits in castles and resorts to the Global South's SCO Summit in a city once scarred by colonialism. Tianjin was once a gateway for colonizers. Today, Beijing wants it to be the gateway for the Global South. From concessions to connections. From being carved up to carving out a new world order. That's why Tianjin, not Beijing, not Shanghai, but a city that carries the scars of the past and the ambitions of the future. Tianjin is abuzz because something big is happening here. It is getting ready for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or SCO Summit. This is the 5th time that China is hosting the summit. Adjacent to the main venue is the media center, the one-stop destination for the nearly 3,000 journalists huddling in the port city. With everything from workstations and news briefings to photo releases and summit updates. But it's not just about cables and coffee here. At the center of it all stands an exciting interactive surprise, an AI humanoid robot. Hi, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great.
Are you all set for the SCO Summit?
Yes. Everything is fully prepared for the SCO Summit.
Can you tell me about yourself?
Certainly. I'm Xiaohe, an advanced humanoid AI robot designed for the SCO Summit. I specialize in multilingual communication, emotional intelligence, I originate from a robotics facility in Dalian and embody futuristic technology with lifelike appearance and behavior.
This SCO Summit is the largest ever. Leaders from 20 nations will gather here, and the world will be watching. What's more, this is perhaps the largest summit to be held in China since the pandemic. It is bound to attract attention, both at home and abroad. And Beijing wants to send a message, with technology being at the core of it. The robotic companions of this media center say it all. They seem straight out of the future. Need some water? There is a robot for it. Love the mimicking game. A robot hand will copy all your gestures. Even the complicated ones. Need some love? There is a robot waiting for you. Need a partner while you dab? Well, you know the answer.
Thanks for asking.
There are robots to make supply chains swifter and to perform tasks you did not even know you needed help with. Like cleaning wires in a forest, for instance. There is a drone for it, nestled in what looks like a futuristic pot. This may look more robo-expo and less media center, but it is obvious why such advanced tech has flooded this massive gathering. This is about telling the West that they can try to bully the global South, they can try to patronize, but they won't succeed. This SCO Summit signals a shift in balance. Amid these turbulent geopolitical times, it is a showcase of the global South leading the way, leaving the West to play catch-up. Want to know why? Our friend, the humanoid robot, has a pro tip for you.
Watch the coverage of the SCO Summit from Tianjin on First Post.
Well, with to be the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, of Japan's that 10 million yen investment in India. Thank you so much, Akanksha, for putting this story into perspective. Now, moving on to another story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now set to visit China following his high-profile Japan tour to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin. This marks his first visit to China in over 7 years, a pivotal moment as India and China seek to ease tensions after the deadly border clashes of 2020. PM Modi will hold key bilateral meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin amid global turbulence triggered by the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and fresh US tariffs on Indian exports. The summit comes at a time when India is navigating complex geopolitical and economic headwinds. In an interview with a Japanese daily, Prime Minister emphasized the need for India and China to collaborate in the face of global economic volatility. He reaffirmed India's commitment to strengthening ties with Beijing through a strategic long-term approach rooted in mutual respect and shared interests. All right, my colleague Rahul Shivshankar is joining us live from Tianjin at this point. Rahul, what is the atmosphere like? And also tell us about the significance of this Prime Minister Modi's visit to China, which is coming after 8 years.
Well, we are here in Tianjin, outside, of course, the convention center. That's the main hall, really. If you can see, that's where all the leaders, the various heads of states will meet, convene over the next 2 days, and they're going to hold some of the more consequential talks that an SCO Summit has witnessed in the recent past. And remember, this organization is a young one. Many disparate countries part of this organization. They're going to try and find common ground. They desperately need to, because the whole theme, as the China Daily suggests here, is about sending a message, a larger message, that this particular bloc is viable. Remember, many disparate countries with different cultural backgrounds, political traditions are going to convene in that big hall. And it has been difficult in the past to try and forge common ground between these different countries with different tugs and pressures and, of course, economic circumstances. So the whole idea really is to tell the West that, look, you can't dictate the terms, specifically one person, Donald Trump, President of the United States, that you can't dictate to these countries, these emerging countries of the global South, some of which now occupy the top 5 positions in the world with regards to their GDP size and, of course, the size of their populations, that you can't tell them exactly how to conduct their foreign affairs, their geopolitics, and their geonomics. Most importantly, you can't also dictate to them their destinies. So these countries are going to try and find common ground so that there is enough room for them to cooperate specifically on trade and send a message to Washington and other European capitals that our economic strategic autonomy cannot be trampled upon at any length or at any level. So that's the principal basis on which these countries are going to meet. Of course, for India, of particular interest will be the two bilateral meetings. They themselves signal some sort of a political tilt. Many people are calling this a reset, specifically the engagement between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. But I wouldn't go as far as that. It's not really a reset. This is an attempt to try and paper over some of the differences that emerged over the last 6-7 years, specifically after Galwan, where we saw China intruding on Indian territorial sovereignty in the way that it has been doing for quite a while now. But more importantly, we're going to try and also see if the two countries can actually work through some of these sticky issues, these issues which have led to both countries draw down their trade ties. Now, trade is very, very important at this time because, as you know, Washington has been trying to dictate the international trade agenda. Many people think that Washington has gone rogue by imposing its tariffs. Both China and India are going to try and send a message that options exist for both these countries that at some level or the other are laboring under tariff threats. India, of course, one of those alongside Brazil that has the highest tariff that has been imposed by the United States on any country around the world. So at 50%, India needs to desperately find more trading partners, more options. And that is something that is going to be or take center stage in that conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. We know that that conversation will extend to about 40 minutes. There's already a huge amount of expectation building up. Look at the number of people here in the city of Tianjin, a beautiful city. If you look around you, this city is very beautifully laid out. It's a very important port city because it feeds a lot of China's northeast, including Beijing, which is the adjoining major metropolis to Tianjin, the country's capital. So this particular capital is all decked up, and the road that you see on your screens right now is going to be, of course, shut down to for the public because in the next few hours, as the day wears on, we are going to have the heads of state now beginning to land in and about this particular area. So this district will go into a bit of lockdown. But the city itself is witnessing huge amount of development over the last few years. It's one of the newer cities that has been established here in China. Interesting architecture because a lot of it is modeled on European capitals. One wouldn't have thought that that would be an inspiration, but it is rather interesting to see buildings that you would ordinarily see in Europe fashioned here in Tianjin. But that apart, the entire stress right now also of the China daily is to also project Xi Jinping as a powerful leader who's still very much in control of his party. There have been questions about his own leadership status, but this particular newspaper, today morning's newspaper, which of course will be available to various heads of state when they land all their delegations, she stresses persistent efforts to improve party conduct. So that is an important message going out from a leader whose own leadership has been in question. And it is obviously an attempt to project power on his behalf, command the authority so that when he goes into negotiations, no one mistakes his position as somebody who speaks for all of China. Those are very important optics. But what we're expecting right now, Arun, is that the two leaders will, of course, try and communicate to the rest of the world that as far as India and China are concerned, we are capable of going back to the table and engaging each other. This has, of course, not been true over the last 7 years, as you know. The Indian side extremely upset at some levels with Pakistan for what it did with regards to Pahalgam, and of course we went to war against Pakistan, teaching it a bit of a lesson at the Operation Sindoor. But we also saw in the backdrop the cooperation between Pakistan and China militarily, and that is something that send alarm bells ringing here in New Delhi. And obviously the Prime Minister will perhaps look to talk about those issues. Perhaps the delegations might engage each other on those issues, because India did not appreciate the fact that real-time intelligence was being shared with Pakistan, which of course is an undermining of the spirit of cooperation, the Shanghai spirit, as it was called, that Xi Jinping had declared would be underwriting much of this regional cooperation. So that is something that is not going to go down very well with New Delhi, and we hope to impress upon China that that kind of behavior only widens the trust deficit between the two countries. So I suggest that we look very closely at the fine print of the written agreement, because you will see that there will be an overemphasis on trade issues where common ground can be forged. There has been, as you know, a drawdown of trade relations between the two countries, with both of them imposing sanctions at different levels, and the aftermath of Galwan, the Chinese side coming out and withdrawing some of their technical staff from India, which meant that some of our own industrial applications and industrial production got hit a little bit. There was also from the Indian side a reciprocal drawing down of Chinese investment by suggesting to China that their investments will be subject to greater scrutiny, which was another word of saying that we will not be looking at China for more investments. So all of those things will perhaps be resolved. There is, of course, the outstanding boundary question, which is beset these ties for a long, long time. So I mean, all of that, of course, will also be sort of addressed, but not in any substantive manner. I think the optics will matter more. There will also be, of course, an attempt to try and signal to America that these two countries can do business together, so they're not isolated. For President Xi, this is a very important moment to suggest that, look, they can still command, China can still command the respect of the South countries, the global South countries, and that China can also be a power here in the East, which is representative of perhaps half the population of the planet.
Absolutely. Interesting. Very interesting 2 days.
We're outside the convention center here, where in a matter of days, the Prime Minister and of course the heads of state of all the other SCO countries will be holding a summit meeting. But most importantly, this will also be a place where all eyes will be on that bilateral, very consequential bilateral between India and China. Now, the main paper here in China, the China Daily, is already building up to that particular moment, that summit. There are mentions, of course, of the entire summit meeting and its agenda and what is hoped to be achieved, but there's also a mention of that bilateral. Expectations are also mounting here in China, specifically after the offensive that has been led by the United States on tariff that has brought both Beijing and New Delhi to try and explore more territory, more common ground for cooperation, specifically on trade issues, and try and resolve some of those thorny issues that saw relations plunge into an icy chill. That, of course, is history, because for a year now, India and China have been engaging and have been trying to work through some of their problems, specifically related to their boundary disputes. There has been a meeting of the boundary resolution mechanism, the 24th meeting. We're yet to see, of course, more announcements with regards to the next round, but that is an ongoing process. It started 25 years ago. We're not expecting immediate breakthroughs of any consequential nature, either on the boundary question or, of course, on the other outstanding geopolitical issues. For example, China's support to Pakistan, specifically during Operation Sindoor, when we saw that that particular support extended beyond just moral as well as military, but, well, spilled into other domains which very much irritated India and filled it with unease, given the fact that the Chinese were sharing real-time intelligence with, of course, the Pakistanis on Indian troop movements and, of course, other consequential actions that India was taking against Pakistan during those 4 days. So that would be an issue that will perhaps come up in talks, but don't expect China to either not stop viewing this entire relationship through its zero-sum lens. But certainly there will be some give and take, and we're expecting that common ground to be found in trying to promote people-to-people contacts, cultural engagements between the two countries, and of course trade. Trade, as you know, viewers, gives both India and China plenty of room to intensify relationships. There has been, of course, there too drawing down, given the fact that the Chinese withdrew important support to India's critical sectors, specifically boring machines and other technical staff that were pulled back from India. There's also been, of course, a decision by Beijing to withhold rare earth metals that were at one time being supplied to India in adequate quantities. From the Indian side, of course, they will look to hopefully extract those concessions from China, but also from its own side, allow for Chinese flights to continue between the two countries. Once again, remember, there has been a complete drawdown on that front, also people-to-people contacts and trade. Depending on the concessions that China gives, India might then think on once again going back to the table and lifting some of those restrictions on Chinese investments in India. So a lot to be passed through, really, in this consequential meeting. The tone and tonality will be very important. There will be high rhetoric, most probably aimed at, of course, the United States and other Western countries, as both India and China try and project themselves as the leaders of the Asian bloc, of the South, the global South, and send a message that to America and, of course, other Western bloc countries that both these nations will not allow anyone to dictate on strategic and financial autonomy.
Why did China pick Tianjin to host this year's SCO Summit? For many watching from the outside, Beijing or Shanghai would seem the natural choice. Beijing is the capital of China, while Shanghai is where the SCO was born. As the name says it, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So Tianjin was a surprise pick. But why? The answer lies here in the streets of Tianjin. These are not ordinary homes, they are practically heritage sites. This place is often described as an open museum. Tianjin is the fourth largest city of China, and it carries an unusual nickname. It is called the Outdoor Museum, and that's because of what surrounds me. This city is an extraordinary collection of preserved historical architecture, buildings from different countries and different eras all standing together. And where we are right now is called the Five Great Avenues. It is home to more than 2,000 historical buildings. More than 400 of them have been designated as protected historical sites with plaques like this one. It says Great General Protection, Historical and Stylistic Architecture of Tianjin. You'll see this all over the place here. And this is what makes the city so unique. It is a modern city, but it also feels like a living exhibition where each street and each district is part of the display. The homes in Tianjin's Five Great Avenues are direct architectural remnants of China's colonial period. They reflect the foreign concession system. This system emerged after China's military defeats in the 19th century. This is what used to be a part of British concession, one of many concessions in Tianjin. According to one claim, there were a total of 9. Each was a designated area not governed by China. It was controlled by a foreign country, like a mini, its own laws, its own police, its own courts, its own administration, and completely outside Chinese control. Each concession brought with it a piece of another country, all planted onto Chinese soil. That is no longer the case today. These buildings are now firmly in Chinese hands. The streets are lined with Chinese shops and cafes. Modern-day Chinese coffee and food chains now operate from colonial buildings. They represent today's China, the world's second largest economy, and a force to reckon with. That is the message that Xi Jinping wants to send as the host of the SCO Summit. Tianjin sits on Bohai Bay. It is the maritime gateway to Beijing, a strategic city, also central to the Belt and Road Initiative. Tianjin serves as connection between land corridors and sea trade routes. It plays a growing role in regional trade logistics. Its port is connected with more than 180 countries and regions. Freight trains now link Tianjin directly with Central Asia and Europe. One recent route from Tianjin to Uzbekistan shortened delivery distance by 800 kilometers. This city is strategically important for China's SCO outreach. The SCO represents around 40% of the world's population and 25% of global GDP. So the subtext is clear. It is not just about hosting a summit, it is about sending a message, a shift in balance. From the West's G7 summits in castles and resorts to the Global South's SCO Summit in a city once scarred by colonialism. Tianjin was once a gateway for colonizers. Today, Beijing wants it to be the gateway for the Global South. From concessions to connections, from being carved up to carving out a new world order. That's why Tianjin, not Beijing, not Shanghai, but a city that carries the scars of the past and the ambitions of the future.